Hi, I'm Coach T, and in this video in the Python Quick Code series, we are going to be covering tuples, which are a very common data structure or data collection in Python. Over the last couple of videos, we've covered the return list, or the return keyword, excuse me. We've covered lists in, I think, 3 or 4 different videos, including appending, popping, and inserting. We've also covered the random library. So we're starting to move into increasingly advanced stuff with this Python Quick Code series. And today we're going to cover a new type of data collection called tuples. But before we begin, I've got a little request of you. If you are enjoying the headfirst practical approach to learning to code in Python, or if you're benefiting from these really one topic at a time videos, please subscribe to the channel or share it with somebody else, because the whole purpose of my channel is to help other beginners like I was a year ago get over the rough, raw rocks of beginning to code with a language like Python, which I think is a great starting language. That's why I'm putting the energy into this, in order for you to make cool or beautiful things, right? So I don't do a lot in terms of social media. I actually don't use it at all outside of YouTube. But if you're benefiting from it, maybe you can help me out by giving me a little boost and sharing this with your learning community or somebody that you think might benefit from a Python video. With that said, I don't have anything to sell you. I don't have a book. I don't have a course. I don't sell billable coaching hours. I think all of that is better left to real experts. I am a learner myself, and I want to respect that boundary. So with that said, I would love to show you tuples. So let's see. Let me click the right button. There we go. Okay, so the big idea here is that tuples are immutable data collections that store values. That is similar but not identical to lists, where lists are mutable data collections, meaning they can change. With a tuple, you cannot change the data within the tuple once it is initiated. So we do need to be aware it's got to be set the right way, or else the whole thing has to be reset. That's it. It's a very convenient, very fast, very reliable data collection, but once it's set, you can't change it. So if you're doing something like you're using a data collection to store a character name and the current XP or the current gold or the items, or you're trying to create a data collection to serve as an inventory for a simple game, a tuple is not your friend, because you cannot change the individual values once it's set up without rewriting it. But it can be really useful in something like Pygame, where you might use a tuple to spit out the values so that Pygame can redraw things on the screen very rapidly, because it's very quick to iterate through. So that's the kind of mile-high view of what a tuple is. And I'm going to show you, first of all, how to set one up. I've already done that here on the screen. And then also how to access with indexing your tuples in this video. And then we'll do another one where we'll talk about overwriting tuples and some ways that you could use them, including kind of a neat function of Python, using a tuple to get multiple return values out of a function, which normally you cannot do. So the tuple micro series here is going to be 2, maybe 3 videos at the outset, and then we'll look at dictionaries, which I'll be honest, it's kind of my bugbear. I didn't really click with dictionaries for a long time, but that'll give us 3 different data collections that you can use or choose from when you're developing your own projects. Okay, so let's look at setting up a tuple. Couple of key elements. First of all, you need your variable name and you need your assignment operator, your equal sign, right? If you don't know what those are, back up and go watch the videos on the basic syntax and on variables. I've got a very deep dive into variables in Python that you can go watch. And then we have our elements. Before we dive into the elements, though, take a look at these 2 characters. A tuple is declared within parentheses. That's different than a list, where a list is declared within square brackets. Dictionaries are declared within curly brace brackets, and tuples are declared within, there we go, within your typical parentheses brackets. So we are going to be focusing on this particular type today, tuples. All right, so once we have our variable and our assignment operator and we have our parentheses, then we have the individual elements within our tuple set. So we have Coach T as my first element, which if you remember your zero-based indexing makes it my 0th element. We have the 500, which is an integer. We have a Boolean true. We have a float, and we also have an individual character. Now, the purpose of me setting up the tuple this way is to show you that, like a list, a tuple can store different elements of different types. That is different than in other statically typed languages or strongly typed languages like C# or Java. I don't know about JavaScript off the top of my head, but if I were to write a tuple in C#, which I do periodically, it has to be all the same type. I can only have a tuple of string. I can only have a tuple of integer, of float, of Boolean, whatever. Python, because it is dynamically interpreted, does allow you to have a collection of multiple mixed types, which is very useful. But the cost, the tech debt there is that it does slow down the language as a whole. So if you ever see people complaining, oh, Python's slow, one of the reasons is because it gives you features like this. That is one of the compromises that it makes. However, that's neither here nor there. So, and it's also not the only reason. Like, to be fair, there are other reasons that Python processes more slowly than C# or C++ or Java. This is just one of the possible factors that could lead to slower execution. Anyway, so that is the syntax. If you want to declare a tuple or you want to return a tuple, right, we could do define, well, no, you know, we won't do a function in this video because it's getting into the next video and I don't want to get ahead of myself. If we want to access elements in a tuple, we just use the zero-based indexing system. So let's see, what if I change this to, we'll do it to 3, and then I wrap this whole thing, in a print command like this. What do you think the tuple will print? Let us run it and find out. It prints off 5.5. I realize that's kind of wordy here. Let me see if I can run that a little bit more clearly. Nope, it's just going to be like that. Okay, 5.5. Delete that. All right, so the 5.5 is not the third 1, 2, 3, but rather the third element stored. So the fourth item in the list, but the element assigned to number 3. A little bit confusing to talk about in natural language, but I get 5.5. To demonstrate that also, if I go to 0, I should get Coach T because that is the 0th or first element in the list. There it is, Coach T. And also, little trick, if I want to access the last number in a list, but I don't know how deep the list is or the tuple is, I can do a -1 and I'll get the last element. A, right? Or if I want to do the second to last, I could do 2. Rerun it. I should get 5.5 again. So in this case, I'm iterating or I'm indexing backwards using the negative sign. So that's kind of an interesting little trick that you can use to access things if you don't know where they are. However, and this is a little bit of a preview for the next video, if I were to say my tuple 0 now equals coacht.com, and I print my tuple 0, I'm going to run into an issue. And the issue is tuple object does not support item assignment. So we're going to look more at that problem and how to get around it or how to solve it in the next video, which will be on updating tuples and also on returning values into tuples and accessing them. So that's it for me. I'm Coach T. Again, if you like this kind of head-first practical approach to learning Python, to learning to build cool things, consider subscribing or sharing the video. And I will catch you next week with our next video on tuples.